Welcome to another episode of Riding and Wrenching, the biggest little YouTube channel on the entire interwebs. I am your host, Q the Rider, and in today's video, we're going to review the sound system that I have in my 23 CVO Road Glide. Now what I've done is I took my bike to Volunteer Audio, and shout out to Volunteer Audio for sponsoring this video, and we replaced the stock Rockford Fosgate amp with a 1000 watt amplifier from Hertz. In order to make that amplifier work, it also required what's called an A to B module. It's a digital decoder, which takes the digital signal coming out of the bike, out of the infotainment screen, and it converts it into a signal that can be amplified with an aftermarket amplifier. The Rockford Fosgate system has the A to B module built into the amplifier, and that's why so many shops are having difficulty upgrading the amps in this bike, because you have to have a decoder module. And that's a proprietary piece of equipment from Rockford Fosgate and Harley Davidson, but Volunteer Audio has made their own.
Yeah, I'm Jay Bradshaw, owner of Volunteer Audio in Oliver Springs, Tennessee. Do you want me to intro more than that? That's who I am. You're going to ask me some questions, right?
All right, so Volunteer Audio, what do you guys do here? What is Volunteer Audio?
So we specialize in upgrading audio on all kinds of vehicles, but majorly we do Harley Davidson.
Okay.
And in this case, we have the only A to B module in the world to allow to remove the factory amp and upgrade this sound system how it should be.
Okay, well, what we're going to do today, we are going to do an audio system upgrade on the bike. But before we jump into the upgrade, let's talk about the stock system that's on here. Because you and I talked about these bikes when we got them last summer, and I was super excited, and I was hoping like right away we would be able to jump into it.
Yeah, we all were.
Let's start from that standpoint. What did you run into after you got your new CVO?
So I think we felt the same way. We were excited. We knew that factory audio, as much as it sounds good in the showroom, it's never what we want it to be when we ride down the road. So we jumped the gun probably, and we bought some bikes, and we hoped that the sound system wasn't great. Because Harley said it was the best they'd ever done,
sure
right?
Did.
Lots of good advertisement. So I got the bike back here, and I took it apart, and I start, I don't even have schematics for it yet. So I start pinning out what each wire does, and I'm testing, and I unplug the amp, and I start testing, and I find out I can't find any signal. There's no audio, and I can't figure out why. So I then go, Harley's got a website, and I pay, and I get the schematics for what they had, and I start looking, and there's these two wires that says A to B, in and out, and I'm going, oh wow, this doesn't have speaker wires anywhere. I got to learn about A to B now. And we saw this before. I knew about A to B technology has been used in Marine. It's been used in Ford. Ford trucks have it. Now the new Bronco has it.
Oh, really?
But that wasn't out at the time. But A to B was this new thing we had to grasp. It's very similar to like fiber optic or digital coax, where we have a digital input signal that doesn't just transfer sound, because it really doesn't. It transfers data that's then converted to sound. But you can do a lot with it. So Harley decided to use A to B on the new body style that used the Skyline OS system to transfer not only the data to create the audio, but fader, balance, nav prompts, EQ settings. All of that is done through two wires.
Wow, okay.
It's a very low voltage system, so it doesn't pull a lot of power, but at the same time, it's very powerful, and it'll do 31 channels of audio bidirectionally through two wires. So simple to install, and then you can daisy chain. So they could run additional modules, additional amplifiers, and all these things would work together through this one digital signal, kind of like the internet network at your house.
Right. When I brought this bike home, I left the dealership because I saw the promotional videos that Harley did. It sucked. It was so bad. And so I ended up changing the windscreen. So I put a taller windscreen on here to block the air, because I thought that would improve the sound, and it did. That helped. But then I ran into issues with the amplifier, because I had no idea how to set up the amplifier on this bike to get the best sound, and so I'm just playing around with it. And
the EQ and so on, right?
I'm sorry, I said the EQ. And I did it all wrong, which made it worse. And so at highway speeds, I could barely hear it. Because I mean, you probably don't remember, but I called you as soon as I got home. Like, dude, we got to do something about this bike.
And I wanted to do something as fast as possible. So we did some videos, and we brought our bike in, and we took it apart. We hooked it to our dyno, and we started testing that amp to see how much power we had, to see what could be done. It was supposed to be a 500 watt amp. And right on the back of the amp, it says 125 watt by 4.
Right.
That's at 2 ohm because the factory speakers were 2 ohm. We tested it in that same scenario with an AD1 dyno. That is the industry standard dyno. And our results showed 78 watts.
Wow.
And so we're like 50 watts short almost of what it said it would do. And we were expecting more out of it. We know that our Hertz speakers are really efficient. So they're loud even when we don't give them everything they're supposed to have. But our long-term goal was to get the big Hertz amp into the bike also. Gotcha. So we started doing some testing with the Hertz speakers, and to our surprise, after we modified our speakers to fit the bike, it sounded better.
Right.
It was louder, not tremendously louder, but it was a little louder, but it was clearer, which meant we could hear it better at speed, and that windshield was definitely a big part of it too, getting your head out of the wind. Yep. So as we did that testing early on, we found out we needed A to B. We knew now we had to leave the amp in place, or we had to make a module that would take that signal and create what our amp needed to work. We had no sound at all leaving this factory infotainment unit. So as soon as the amp's gone, there's nothing to amplify. So we've worked on it. We had the right people put in the right place. Yep. We've built the module now, and I'm excited about it because that module is so much more powerful than what was in that original amplifier. Now we're going to use a Hertz amplifier that's a little bit bigger in footprint, but a whole lot more powerful. We're going to go from that 500 watt peak amplifier that did 78 watts a channel to a 2,000 watt peak amplifier that at 4 ohm, which is what we're going to run, which is normally less power, it's going to do about 170 to 180 watts of continuous power. But later, when we add those Tour Pack pods on, and you're now running 6 speakers, we're going to get a 2 ohm load, and it's going to jump to 290 watts. So essentially, you're going to have 4 times the power going just to the rear speakers, and you're going to have the ability now to go to those 6 speakers with just the 1 amp. But on top of all of that, this new module has a 31 band DSP in it. Now, I'm going to talk some things that are going to sound complicated, but don't worry. When you buy one of these from Volunteer Audio, it's going to be completely preset, pre-tuned. All this is done by us. We're professionals with the right tools, and it's going to be perfect. But we have the ability to tune each speaker independently in the background. You don't see this. It's inside our module. We can get the most bass out of the rear speakers, the most clarity out of the front, and together have just this awesome, clear sounding system that is going to still use those factory presets. As you were alluding to, you don't know what to do with them. We did some tests. The factory had way too much bass. That way it sounded good in the showroom, but it distorted when it got loud. And we've got it now where our DSP has 31 bands for each speaker, but it also has 7 bands. What's in the radio has a global EQ. So you still have all that adjustment.
So if I'm a Joe consumer out there, I can order this complete system from you. What does it look like?
Well, we got one here. So what's awesome is you're going to get a fully weatherproof, water sealed, so we don't have to worry about water. Vibration, it's set up for Harley. It's completely wired. It's completely programmed. It's completely tuned. Every gain setting, every filter.
So I don't have to do anything.
You do nothing. You're going to take the factory amp out, and we'll go over that here in a few minutes. This is going to go right where the original amp was. This is going to set right in front of it, plug into the factory harness, hook to our power and ground we ran from our battery, and we're going to have a much, much louder, clearer, but overall, better sounding system.
The installation process was pretty straightforward. You need to remove the fairing. You're also going to have to remove the seat as well as the gas tank. That's the hard part because you need to run a power line from the battery into the fairing to power the unit. Once you have that done, everything else is pretty straightforward. You disconnect your factory Rockford Fosgate amp, and you're going to plug in the A to B module and the new Hertz amplifier in its place. Now this process will probably take the average installer maybe about an hour and a half to 2 hours. If you've never done it before, it might take you a little bit longer, but it's pretty straightforward. You don't need any complicated tools or anything like that.
All right, so there's a couple things I did not go over earlier that I should have. So we talked about how we wanted to take the amp out to make room for a bigger amp and how we had to have the A to B module to do that. We talked about it being digital and it being clean and sound. What I didn't talk about was if we left the factory amp in there, and you see a lot of people doing this, and it's no fault of theirs in the sense they're just using what they have available to them. A lot of places are deciding I'll put a DSP in to try to correct the bass problem, and then I'll add another amp, but I have to do this. They're doing it with the stock amp still in there.
Okay.
And on the CVO model specifically, the higher output amp, it's got a lot of hiss and floor noise. So when the song's paused, or even when the song's just down in lower volumes, you hear a
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
where right now our radio's on, our amp's powered up. Beyond that air conditioner running there, we don't have any hiss. It's perfectly quiet on our sound floor. Plus we had the room to fit the bigger amp, and there's not so much stacked in here. It's still a very clean looking install. There's nothing, as you cram more and more components in, you risk having wires rubbed through and having problems. Now, beyond that, this radio's digital, and it talks to the factory amplifier. And so we're going to go into sound. We're going to do what we did earlier. We're going to look at our speaker setup. And now what you're going to find out is, I really like this. I love seeing my name in the radio. But here it is. It says now, Volunteer Audio, powered by Siren HD. So Siren HD is the engineering company that we sourced to build our A to B module.
Okay.
And now our radio sees it and is communicating.
Gotcha.
Flip side of this is, you're going to have to update this infotainment system at times. That infotainment update also updates the factory amp.
Okay.
We wrote the code. When you do the update, it'll say, hey, what amp's in here? It'll talk back, tell it the premium factory amp. Right. And then it'll say, well, here's your update. And it'll say update complete, and allow you to continue on updating the infotainment system. If it didn't see the amp, it would stop there, give you a fault code, kick you out. So we don't cut anything. We don't modify anything. We don't void any factory warranties, and we don't stop Harley from being able to update and fix any bugs they have in their operating system. Gotcha. So no downside to you for doing this other than much better audio. And like I said before, we've got several updates coming out that will be making this A to B module do more and more, from control our drop-in subwoofer enclosures to adding the sub slider in the menu so you can turn the sub up and down from inside the radio. We just have a lot coming that I think will be very impressive as it moves forward. And we're going to be able to warranty it that way too. Speakers 3-year, amp 3-year. And 3 years is a long time at the volume this puts out. And we're going to stand behind it. You're not going to have a problem, but if you do, we'll take care of it. Absolutely. But let's get this thing to where we can listen to it, because I think that's where the proof is, right? If you're decently mechanically inclined, you can do this in your garage in a few hours.
Okay. Awesome. Well, man, I love it, and I'm going to be back soon. I'll be back soon. But
we're so happy we're going to do more.
We're going to do more. It's not over yet. We got more to do. But no, definitely reach out to Volunteer Audio. Reach out to Jay. I would not say he was a great guy if I didn't think that he was. I enjoy coming here. You know, one of the cool things about coming to Oliver Springs. Oliver Springs. We're right down the street from Knoxville. So you can come here, get your system installed, and then you can go ride the Dragon.
Yeah, or we're about 10 miles from the Devil's Triangle, so that's a pretty popular ride as well. So trailhead to that, or the head of that is right here. It's on the backside of Windrock Mountain, so that's a really popular ride. But we have so many beautiful places to ride. Definitely check out the systems for your new CVO or even your new base model bikes at volunteeraudio.com. If you have questions, if you want to reach out and talk to us, our knowledgeable sales and tech staff can be reached out at 1-844-30-AUDIO. Definitely follow Volunteer Audio on YouTube. Check out our content. We're going to have some different variations of these videos, a lot more, whether it be lighting, exhaust, audio, all the things you want to do to your bike, we're going to have it there.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure.
Your power source had our organization puzzled for some time.
They are still puzzled, Mr. Bond.
Not any longer.
Well, to me, I've told Eric this many times, but I feel like this color combo is like, if I was James Bond and I'm in an Aston Martin, this is the color you want it, right? You want it's very classy, but it's not that over-the-top Harley look at me that some of the other colors have been.
So what you're saying, though, is that the dark platinum is cool, like James Bond is cool.
That's what I said.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I said. Yeah, I think James Bond would have one just like this.